Samira. Yeah, it was her nose. It was just the most perfectly formed, like little button nose, and she was premature. So I was just amazed by how perfect her little nose was.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today, Farrah. I really I'm very looking so forward to having you tell the story of Samira. So thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you kind of based out of, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I live in Northern California, and I am actually a labor and delivery nurse. So very involved in this world.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's a big part of my life.
yeah. I was going to ask you, what are you originally from California area then?
Yeah, I am not from where I'm living now. Like I'm from like the Bay Area,
Oh, gotcha.
but
Okay.
it's pretty expensive. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
went to school. I was a nurse somewhere on the East Coast, and then I decided to come back to California to be closer to family.
Awesome. And that's always great. And what do you like to do in your spare time when you're not working? Because I'm
Yeah,
sure.
um, yeah. Like right now, honestly, it's a lot of like TV. It's like some like when I just need to like like relax at the end of the day. It's really kind of some trashy TV,
Oh,
but and then yeah,
that guilty pleasures. I mean, it's a real thing.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, good fun. Okay, and then tell me a little bit about what your family looks like right now, and at the
yeah.
time that Samira was born.
Sure. Yeah, I have a very non-traditional family. I'm a single mom by choice. At the time that Samira was born, I was living. Actually, I have well, I call them my host sisters. So I have two girls in their 20s who live with me.
Hmm.
And it's a long story, but I taught English abroad for a couple years, and I lived with
Oh,
their family in another country, and they became like my second family. And so,
oh,
yeah. So at the time, they had come over for a visit, and then COVID happened, and they got stuck here. So they were living with me for a while.
out of necessity, really.
Yeah, like their country, like literally closed its borders. They couldn't
Yeah,
go home.
there were so many people that happened to, so they were stuck in the country that they were visiting for a long
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Well, that was awfully kind of you for them to be able to stay with you.
Yeah.
And okay, and so they are still living with you then?
They're still living with me, and I now have a 1-year-old daughter, and they are helping me with her. So it's been really great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Okay, well
they were able
you
to go home. They went home and came back, so they
good.
did.
We get
Yeah,
okay, good. But they're also okay, but they also decided to come back and help, and that is
yeah,
great.
yeah,
You mentioned earlier that you are a non-traditional family. You have kind of a non-traditional family. So tell me a little bit about what made you to decide on that this route, and just kind of tell me a little bit about how you did get pregnant with Samira.
sure. Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a mom. Like that was
Yeah.
like never a question. When I was young, I was always babysitting my cousins, and I just
Hmm.
loved kids, and I just had this like desire to be a mom. And so when I got to my late 20s and not great in relationships, I was like joking with my friends, like, oh, I'll just do it on my own. And then when I got into my 30s, I was like, oh, actually, maybe I really will do that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And then in terms of like how you get pregnant, like I had no idea if I had fertility issues or not.
Yeah.
Because, if you're not trying, you don't know.
Yep.
But I knew that I didn't have to. I really didn't want to get pregnant in a doctor's office. I just, yeah. So I looked at like my options and did like a lot of research and decided to try to get pregnant at home using like frozen sperm from a sperm bank.
Oh, okay.
So that was my yeah, and they well, especially during COVID, they would actually ship it to you. You had to have, like, a provider sign for it,
Oh, okay.
um, but yeah, so, like, you could basically do it yourself at home, um, and so I did do, like I did, try that, and also just, like, picking a sperm donor, that's,
Ye
like, a whole 'nother
exactly. But you felt good about the decisions you made in
yeah,
regards to that.
yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, and I found a midwife actually, so I didn't do it at home, I ended up going to the midwife's practice,
okay,
and she did, like, an IUI, not monitored, in her office, and it didn't work,
okay.
and so I was like, "Oh, man," like, that was, like, $1,500. I was like, "I don't know if I can do that, like, every single month."
Yeah,
Um
especially if you're not sure about any fertility issues. Because right now, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just the first attempt, right? And so that's a
yeah,
little tricky because sometimes you're like, "Okay, was that because it just didn't work because it was an IUI?" Oh, and,
right,
so an IUI stands for intrauterine insemination.
insemination.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they go, like, into the uterus, which I couldn't do at home. At home, it's
Yes.
called ICI, um and so I thought that was like a better chance, but also like not being monitored because there's no ultrasounds. Like I was just doing like the ovulation little strips at
Method.
home, like
Okay.
guessing.
Gotcha, okay.
Um, so my sister had actually told me about her friends had found this app, and basically an app for like all sorts of different like sperm donors or egg donors, surrogates, like, but it was like not run by a sperm bank. It was kind of just like a free for all, which at first I was like, no, 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 I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Then after this first attempt, I was like, actually, let me look at this and just check it out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of like a dating app. Like you kind of like read profiles and you swipe and you connect,
Uh-huh.
and then you talk and you do your own research. Like the sperm donor I found, he like gave me his like background, like his medical information, ancestry, genetic reports, STI reports, and yeah, and so I found the sperm donor on the app. So
Whoa.
pretty modern.
Yeah, that is super modern. And so, does that happen the exact same way though that he donates somewhere and then it gets shipped somewhere? Is that I'm assuming it's
It
probably sort of similar though.
it can, like, you can choose to go that route and, go through, like, then a sperm bank and have it, frozen and, like, tested and all that. I
Yeah.
decided not to do that.
Okay.
So, we just met up, signed some paperwork, like, met face to face, and, like,
Mhm.
I felt good about it, and, he did his thing, gave me his sample, and then I, got myself pregnant.
Oh, and you did ICI?
CI at home. Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah. Yep.
And what does that stand for? Just for our audience.
I'm pretty sure it's intercervical insemination, so it's just
Yeah,
basically like
I
yeah,
think that's
it's
probably
not
right.
as invasive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not as far in.
Yep.
Okay, and so you did it yourself and you were able to, do that just fine?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it took a
s
couple tries, but then I got pregnant.
okay. When you were still kinda doing the just like you were doing strips on maybe when you were ovulating and all that jazz, right? Also, when you
Yeah.
did it at home, okay. So a couple tries, and then you got pregnant. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it took like I was like I had made actually did make an appointment with the fertility clinic because it had taken, like 5 tries over 7 months, and I was like, "Maybe I just need to go," and, like, so I did
just
have an appointment, and of course, they booked, like it was, like, 5 months out,
of
so,
course, yes.
yeah. Anyway, so by the time I got pregnant, my appointment was the next month, so I was
Oh,
very happy to call and cancel.
you're like, "That worked out, cancel that
Yeah.
appointment."
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So you are so now you're pregnant and tell me when you actually did the pregnancy test. Like what was your reaction? Was it cuz you'd already had a couple of negative tests at least.
Right.
So what was
Right.
your reaction when you finally got the positive
I
on that?
was surprised. I mean, I think like everyone like me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like it worked." And then I was like, "Oh my gosh, did I make the right decision?" Like it's real now. Like and
Yeah.
I've been working and I had been like thinking about this for so long and then
Yeah.
it was like real.
Yeah, you're like, "Whoa, okay." Well,
Yeah.
that's super exciting. And did you end up telling people kind of right away or what did you
I
do?
did. In my head, I wanted to wait, but then, especially as a single person, I was like, I don't have like a husband to like share this with,
Yeah.
like I needed to get it out and tell someone.
Yeah.
So I think I called like my best friend, called two people at first, my best friend and then my cousin, who's also another like best friend,
Yeah, yeah.
and told them right away. And was just like, I was like on a walk. I was like walking and like I told my best friend and it was just like screaming on the phone, like, "Ah," like, it's
No,
so
you gotta get
excited.
excited. It is exciting news, so that's awesome. How fun.
Yeah.
And, oh, I was actually gonna ask, so your family, were they on board with helping you I mean, like, with the whole idea of getting pregnant without a partner or anything like that?
Super, super supportive. Yeah. I'm
Awesome.
very lucky. Yeah.
That's amazing because it really can be tricky sometimes in
Yeah.
navigating that, so well, awesome. And then can you also just out of context, tell me when Samira was born or when you got pregnant, I guess, is maybe a better question, so we can kinda get timelines on how that
Yeah.
works.
I got pregnant in March of 2021 and she was due in December of 2021.
Okay.
And then
So
she was
s
born at the end of July. Yeah.
and still so very much into the pandemic, kind of right in the middle of it.
Mhm.
Uh, when you started going to see the doctor, like, what did you obviously, I a lot of times they just say, "Oh, wait 8 to 9 weeks and then start going in." Is that about when you started going in to see your, provider?
Yeah, so, like I said, I'm a labor and delivery nurse, and I chose to deliver and, at the hospital that I work with and
Mhm.
use the doctors that I work with,
Yeah.
and so I had scheduled my first appointment, and, like, appointments are hard to get anyway, so I think it was, like, 9 weeks or 10 weeks, which is actually not that late,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's, like,
um
right on, basically.
yeah, but when my doctor, he saw that I was on his schedule, he actually texted me and was like, "Do you wanna get in earlier?" And I was like, "No, I can wait, it's okay, I'll be like a normal patient."
That's
So it was
nice.
really sweet. Yeah, he was like,
Yeah.
"Congratulations." So,
Oh,
um,
cool.
but actually, like, I had started spotting pretty early on,
Oh, okay.
and so I had started spotting, like, I don't know, like, maybe 5 or 6, like, pretty early, and so this is where, like, being, like, doing what I do, like, I feel like it kinda messed with my head a little bit.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like if I was a normal person, I probably would have gone in and, like, gotten checked out, but, like, in my labor and delivery head, I was like, "Well, it's just spotting, it can be normal," and it
Okay.
can, it
Yes.
can be very common, and, like, I'm like, "Unless I'm, like, bleeding, like, I'm not gonna go in to get checked out,"
Yeah.
so I didn't, and kinda, like, let it was, like, and it would come and go, and it wasn't a lot, and so it was, like, I was, like, worried, but not,
Yeah.
um until but it was eating at me, but I was like, "I don't wanna go in," like, especially because if I went in, like, everyone at work would know I was pregnant, and, like,
Oh,
that was really early.
right, and you were trying to keep it sorta on the down low for a minute, right?
Yeah,
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 okay,
yeah,
okay.
um, but at one point at work, I was spotting, and it was just, like I was just, like, too, like, emotional about it, and I was, working with an older nurse, and I told her, and she was like, "Just get checked out. Ask one of the doctors, you don't have to, like," and so, yeah, so I
Yeah.
asked one of our, residents, and, like, I, like, pulled them aside, like, and I was like, "Hey," like, obviously, it wasn't a busy night, and I was like, "I'm pregnant, and I'm spotting," and then I just started crying, and it came out of nowhere, like, I just started, like, crying in front of her, and she was, like, a little like, I didn't have to ask to get checked. She was like, "Let's check you. Come on, let's go."
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, so, luckily, like, our, triage area is totally empty, and so she did a check, an internal,
Oh,
and at 7
okay.
it was 7 weeks, and, there was the heartbeat, and it was, like, such a huge relief, and it was the first time I had my appointment yet.
Oh, and so you got to see her
So,
the little heartbeat.
yeah, yeah,
That
so it was, like, the perks of, like of my job too. It was like, "Oh," like
Yes. Yeah, that is nice and kind of reassuring. But it's funny because I when you said it was kind of like being an L&D nurse was kind of messing with your brain, and I was like, "You're kind of right." Like, having
Mhm,
working in healthcare, you're just like, "Oh, no, it's fine. It'll be fine. It's gonna be
mhm,
fine. It'll be fine."
mhm,
Like, we see so many patients come in that are, like, freaking out because of just one little thing, and so you don't
yeah,
go check it out when you probably should.
right, you're like, "I'm not gonna be that per" not that, like, I'm
I'm not
especially
gonna be
now,
that
I'm like,
patient.
"Okay, I'm like, come in, come in, come in." Like, I wanna, like,
Yeah.
give that you that reassurance, but, like,
Yes.
in my head, I was like, "I don't wanna, like, go in just for, like,"
Yeah.
yeah, it does mess with you.
Right. At the time that the resident did the ultrasound, obviously it was just to make sure that the baby was okay
Mhm.
and but was there anything else that she noted while she was, looking around? It
No,
might have
'cause
just been really quick too, that's the other thing, sometimes you can look quickly or, um and maybe see something. So I'm just wondering if she saw any hemorrhages or anything
Yeah,
because you were spotting.
no, I don't think she was really, like, I mean, there wasn't a lot of bleeding even at that point, so she wasn't really, I don't think she really looked, too much, and it was, like, an unofficial, like,
Right.
little check, like,
Yeah.
it was kinda just, like, and she didn't actually, she did measure the baby, and it was measuring right on, like,
Oh,
my date. Yeah, and so I
great.
knew, like, it was okay, it was growing, baby was growing appropriately, and she didn't, I mean, if there was anything obvious, she didn't see it, so but yeah, it
Gotcha.
wasn't like an in-depth.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice to get confirmation though regardless. You had your appointment, your official appointment, how
Yeah.
long ago after that?
Like 2, I wanna say, like, 2 weeks, and of
Okay.
course, like, I might have spotted, like, once or twice, but it was, like, by the time I had my appointment, it had been, like, many days, and so
Okay.
when the doctor asked, like, "Oh, are you, like, spotting?" I was like, "Well, I did, but, like, not anymore." So it was like, "Great,
Mhm.
like, resolved," or, like, "not an issue," so
Yeah.
it was, like, fine, like, we're moving on, like,
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah. And then at that visit, did they also do an ultrasound?
Did it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So got to see
Yeah.
baby again.
Yeah. Yep.
Wonderful. And how did that look? I mean, anything at the time that was concerning, that the
Mm-mm.
doctor saw or commented on?
No, no, because like, sometimes, like, bleeding can be caused by, like, a little, like a little bit, like, like, they can see on the ultrasound something, and, like, he didn't see, I mean, he didn't really see anything or say anything, so it was
Okay.
kinda just like, well, maybe it's just, like, normal little first trimester spotting,
Yeah.
then, of course, like, I don't know, a couple days after the appointment, like, I was spotting, and I was like, "Of course," like, yeah,
Yes. Yeah. You're
um,
like, of course. It always
yeah,
happens. You go to the doctor and
yeah,
then everything goes to pot.
yeah.
um, okay. And then, how are you feeling? Like, how's the first trimester treating you in regards to like sickness? Were you feeling okay?
Really
Feeling
good,
a
actually, like, a little bit of, like, maybe nausea, but not, like, nothing nothing bad, like, it was actually pretty, besides the spotting, it was a pretty easy first trimester, and I actually, like, I had had this trip planned, it was a canoe trip,
uh-huh.
um, in the Midwest with a friend for her birthday, and when I first got pregnant, and we talked about it, I was like, "It should be fine, like, it should, as long as, we can play it as it goes," but,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'd already committed, and I really wanted to go on this trip,
Mhm.
and as it got closer in the spotting, and I was kind of, like, back and forth, and I even talked to the doctor, I was like, "Is it safe to go?" He said, "Yeah, like, I mean, it would be, like, especially at the time when I wasn't spotting anymore," he was like, it should be, it's what you feel comfortable doing."
Right, right.
And so I did go, and because I really, in my head, I was like, "I wanna be this, like, really strong pregnant person, like this, like, VA," like
Yeah. Yeah. No, you do kind of want to be like, I'm bearing a child and I'm
Yeah.
doing a canoe trip. Like, yeah, you do want to
Yeah.
be strong and healthy. And yeah, I think that's a good sign of things.
Yeah.
So you did go. And how
I
was
did
it? Was
go.
it okay?
It was a lot. I had
Oh,
never
okay.
done a computer, it was beautiful and gorgeous and good people, but I did, the spotting, really kind of, like, increased during that trip, and I was,
Oh,
like, kinda mad at myself.
yeah.
I was like, it was just a really hard decision, and,
Yeah.
you don't know the right answer,
Mm-mm.
and now, of course, looking back, you never know, but I was able to take, like, a rest day, so I didn't have to, like, I didn't push myself, too hard, and then as soon as we got back, I, like, went to, like, a private ultrasound place to get checked out,
Oh,
and,
good. Okay.
she was still fine, so, it's okay, like, maybe I just, like, pushed myself, and I'm just gonna, like, try to take it easy.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I know that would make me worried if you're out like canoeing, camping, I'm not sure what that looks like, but it's like that probably wasn't super easy anyway. Yeah. That's a lot. Okay, so you're just going along and you're still working, feeling okay. So tell me
Mhm.
a little bit more about some of your other appointments that you went to cuz
Yeah,
you don't go in that often at the very beginning.
you don't. And I don't even, I think we had the 12th, like, when I got back from that trip, we did the nuchal translucency, where they
Okay.
measure, like, the back, and that's around 12 weeks,
Yeah.
the back of the baby, to make sure, to just check it out, and it was normal, and
Yeah.
baby looked good, and, like, you get the cute little profile in the ultrasound, it's
Yes.
like, and baby actually starts looking like a baby instead of, like, a little blob.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
so that was, yeah. And so, like, I printed out that, like, little picture. I'm like, "That's like, you look like a baby. You're a baby now."
Yeah. Yay! I know that's always fun
Yeah.
to hit that milestone.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
and also did
Go
the,
ahead.
sorry, at 10 weeks, like, I did the blood test, and so I knew she was a girl.
Oh, okay. So you did
Really
want to go
early.
ahead and do the genetic testing, because you can do that pretty early, yeah, which is like, I
I
swear,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
It was
then
like 10 weeks. Mhm.
did you do any of the extensive, genetic testing? Because I know some of, the basic one will hit up what, the 5
The 5
major.
centimeters. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, did you do any more? Because I know that you can do one where it's like 200 things or something like that.
No. Nope, I just did the basic one,
Okay.
for the trisomies and the s the sex of the baby.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
And you wanted to find out,
and
so that's so fun.
yeah, yeah, so I knew she was a girl really early, and I was really excited.
Yeah.
And I knew her
Did
name, and it was like, and, like, I had a list of names, but I was like, I knew her name was gonna be Samira, so I'm like, I don't even know why I made a list of
really?
other names.
Okay, so give me a little bit of the history of why you chose the name Samira and why you're like, "Oh, this is obviously her name," even though I have this list.
Yeah, it's funny. I in high school, I read a book, and there was a character named Samira, and I couldn't even tell you the name of the book now. Like, but I just remembered like the name Samira, and I was like, that's the most beautiful name. Like,
Yeah.
I just love it, and I also love that it was like, you could shorten it to make a nickname, like Sammy, which is like kind of like,
Oh, that's
um,
so cute. I love that.
yeah, yeah. And so I was like, I didn't really have a nickname growing up, and so I
Yeah.
was like, I want my baby to have a nickname. So
It's really a cute name. It's a beautiful I think it's really a beautiful name. So you
thank
already
you.
kinda chose her name, did you start telling people then at that time? Family members or
Yeah,
friends and everything?
yeah, I started telling family, I think after the 12 weeks, I think it was like Mother's Day where I started telling like siblings and like aunts and stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and so that was it. And I knew she was a girl and I already was telling people her name, Mira.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
fun. Okay, and then so you had the genetic testing at 10 weeks, your appointment around 12 weeks for, the nuchal translucency,
Mhm,
and then I think it's just a lot of times it's just regular office appointments, there's not really any other
mhm,
ultrasounds until, like, the
mhm.
major ultrasound at, 18 to 22 weeks, about 20 weeks, right, essentially,
Yeah.
and how were those appointments? Were those okay?
Yeah, so I honestly don't remember because there was like between that like spotting during the trip and like up until like there was a couple weeks of like everything was fine,
Yeah.
no more spotting, and so I was like, okay, that was just the first trimester, and so I felt really good. And then at 16 weeks, and I don't know if I had an appointment during that time or not. I don't think I did.
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
I had 12 weeks, and then it was like a month later. So 16 weeks, it happened again, and I was like,
So,
oh
some more
gosh, no.
spotting.
Yeah, and at that point, it was a little bit different, and I was like, "I'm gonna go in, like, this is, like, past the first trimester, I wanna get checked out," and so it was the first time I actually went to our triage at our hospital and, like, checked myself in officially to get, checked out.
Okay. And you said this is a little different at 16 weeks. Was it like more blood or what? I mean, you that really
Yeah,
caused the concern.
I think the amount, it was more. It wasn't, like, bright red, it was still pink,
Mhm.
but was, like it just didn't feel right, like, the first trimester in my head, I could rationalize it,
Right. Yeah.
but in the second trimester, I was like, I didn't feel comfortable with it, and
Yeah.
I was like, and people, I think I had started telling people at work, so I was like, I'm just gonna go in.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So, tell me about that appointment that getting triaged and how that looked.
yeah, like I was hoping, like I really thought, like I'm gonna go in and they're gonna say it's totally fine, like, but they were doing an ultrasound to just look, and one of the doctors thought he saw like the cervix opening,
Oh,
and that was just like a bedside ultrasound, so it's not super accurate.
yeah.
So he was like, "Do you mind if I like do a cervical check?" And just like so it's like a manual like feeling of the cervix to like
Yeah.
feel if it's opening or not. And so he did feel, and I was 1 centimeter,
Oh,
which
and
you're
this
supposed to be close. Like,
yes. Yes.
um,
And you're at 16 weeks.
16 weeks, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
This
16 weeks
is
and a couple days. So yeah,
yeah.
and so I was like, that's not good. But I wasn't cramping. I wasn't
N
cramping. I was like not feeling anything. So they were like, "We're gonna do a formal ultrasound." We're like, like it's still in the hospital, but it's like you get sent to like a
Mhm.
actual, I forget what they're called, but like a person who actually does it. Like they measure everything.
Yes.
Um, so we did that, and then like you're waiting in triage, and the results come back, and it was like, well, the good news is that it didn't look like on the formal. He didn't see, or they didn't see what the bedside saw, which was like kind of like the call it funneling, where it's like
Mhm.
really getting like open and thin. And so that was good,
Yes.
but it was the length was good,
Okay. So that's
but it
reassuring.
was still that was reassuring, but it was still opening like on like the manual exam.
Yeah.
And so what the plan was at that point was to do like a serial, like to like come back in like a week or whatever to continue to measure the cervical length,
Mhm.
to make sure it's not shortening.
Okay. So
And so at
that's
that point, it's kind of just watch and wait.
watch and wait. Okay. And did they tell you anything else about, like, taking it easy, anything like that just to kinda help you not let it progress?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember any specific instructions. Like in my head, I was like, "Oh, what do I do? Like, what do I do? Like, do I still work? Like, do I like what? Like, this is where I felt like I was like in new territory. Like, I
Yeah,
don't,
completely. I would
um,
be like, "Oh, yeah." I'd be twiddling my thumbs for, like, a week. I'd be like, "Okay, now
yeah.
what?"
And I think it's like it was a long time ago, but I think I had an actual my OB appointment like either that week or the next, like really soon. So I
Mhm.
think like in triage, like they're just kind of like catching you up and like,
Yep.
fixing what's like right now, and then like your OB kind of like makes the plan,
Does
or like
yes.
follow-up.
Right.
And so I think that was the plan, was to follow up with the OB and decide kind of like, yeah, like, did I need to be taken off work, or like, and besides like the ultrasounds to measure the cervical length, was there anything else we needed to do? So
Right.
that I don't remember when that it was happening soon.
Okay. And what did your regular OB say then when you did go in for that
Well,
appointment?
I didn't get that far. I
Oh,
that
yes,
week,
that's
yeah,
okay, go ahead.
that week I did go to work, and I remember one day like it's just like, oh no, sorry, backtrack. When I got home that night,
Mhm.
I looked at like the ultrasound results because in my chart, like it's online or
Right.
whatever, like
Mhm,
you get the
mhm.
results. And one thing that popped, I was like trying to pour over like what's causing this. I was like trying to read like the report and like see if there was anything abnormal. And the one thing
Right.
that popped up was like they measure the amniotic fluid, or like, and it said they didn't measure it like the number. You can, but they didn't. They just said subjectively low. And like I remember that word, like subjectively low. And I was like,
Okay.
like my heart sunk,
Yeah.
because I think part of the discharge that brought me in, it was like kind of, it was a little like more watery, and I didn't kind of realize that
Oh,
until thinking about it afterward and like analyzing, and like,
y
all
yeah.
you have is time to think about
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
So when I saw that the amniotic fluid was subjectively low in my brain, what if it's my amniotic fluid, and that like my heart sunk, because
Yeah.
that's like not good.
No, that the baby needs the amniotic fluid. That is
Yeah,
very necessary.
yeah. And like
Okay.
someone said, like my coworker was like, if it's just, a little dilation, like there's things we can do, like there's a cerclage where you
Right.
can do the stitch. But if it's your water, they can't like fix your water back, like,
Yep. Yeah.
so in my heart, like that's what, like I was like, that week I was like, okay, what if it's my water bag? And so I went back to work, and I like, or I talked to one of the doctors, and they're like, well, it's really early, like for you can test the amniotic fluid, and something called like, there's something that comes up when you look at it that like tells whether, under a microscope, that tells whether it's like amniotic fluid, or just like
Or yeah, yeah.
discharge or
Yeah.
whatever. And so it's like, can I do like, let's do that. And like I kind of like, I don't know, probably shouldn't say this, but like I did it on myself, like try to like to see like, and like it couldn't really, it was like couldn't really tell.
Okay.
It was like I don't know. And so like that week I was just kind of like trying to do research, and like I don't know if I had reached out to the doctor, if I was just waiting for my appointment, but that Friday, so everything that happened with the ultrasound and the checking the cervix was on Monday, and then that
Okay.
Friday when I was back at work, I was taking care of a patient, and I was standing up, and then at that point I was wearing pads, and I felt fluid, and I was like, that's different. Like I've never felt
Ye
like it actually come out, and so
Yeah.
Um, my patient had transferred, and so I talked to my charge nurse, and I was like, "Hey, like on my break, I think I need to check in and get checked out." And she's like, "Don't wait for your break. You're gonna get checked out right now." Like,
Go, go over
yeah.
it now, right now.
No, yep, and yep, right now. So it was like an official check-in, and where they do the speculum and they do the swab to test
Mhm.
for like the amniotic fluid. And so like I'm just waiting. Like I'm in my scrubs, like my scrub top, like my
Yeah.
pants are out. Like also, it's just like very surreal to be like at work that you're the patient now.
Mhm.
And then so I'm waiting for the results, like just like my heart's beating, just like waiting. And then the attending doctor comes in. And at that point, I knew because at my hospital, it's like the residents do everything. And then if there's like any bad news or something serious, like the attending comes
It
in.
needs to
And
be
so
the attending, yeah.
I don't know if I said it, like asked, I was like, it's my water, isn't it? Or something. And she was like, yeah. And I just started crying. Like I just,
Oh.
and I think my charge nurse had come in at that point and she was like hugging me. And so, yeah, it was really awful. Like I really didn't want it to be that, like, but my heart knew. I feel like that whole week I knew that's what it was.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, I uh, so just to clarify for others, on this podcast and some of our listeners is that, the reason why the water if your water breaks this early, um, this and I'll let you maybe tell a little bit more about some of the things that you probably tell people during in triage and things that can happen if your water breaks at 16 weeks.
Right. So there's a couple things why it's not. I mean, the number one risk is that once your water breaks, it's you are at risk for infection
Mhm.
because that barrier that's like keeping baby safe is now open to like the
Anything.
environment.
Yep.
Yeah, like the
Yep.
vagina. So it's like bacteria can come in, and the risk for infection is really high.
Yeah.
Um,
To
that's
the
why,
baby
like when
and
you're
yeah, to the baby
sorry.
and to you. Like, I
Yes.
mean,
Yep.
everybody's at
hmm
risk, it seems like.
Yeah. 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 It's for both, and it can be like it can turn septic, and so that's very
Mhm.
serious. And then why it's not like good for like that early for the baby too is that the baby uses the amniotic fluid for the lung development. Like
Yeah.
it like takes in like it's like using like for practice, but the lungs grow because of the amniotic fluid. And
Right.
so when there's no amniotic fluids, then the lungs don't grow or can't grow.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't get the infection, you are able to make it to like what they call viability, which is like usually around 24 weeks, which is like also like high risk at that small gestation. But
Oh,
then if
for
you
sure.
deliver a baby at that small gestation with the lung, like really undeveloped lungs, like it's very unlikely that the baby will survive,
Yeah.
even if you make it to the viability. So it's just like, it's just not good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that explanation, just so that everybody understands the kind of the gravity of why you would start sobbing and when you got that news that it was the amniotic fluid.
Yeah.
What did the attending start talking to you about at that time?
Right. So at that time, it's like obviously she gave me a moment and was like, we can talk,
Yes.
later.
Yes.
Um, so when they came back in to talk about, what to do, is like obviously their recommendation would be to end the pregnancy. That like I was like, I can't do that. Like her heart's still beating. Like, and everyone's decision is their decision for their own reasons, and I
Yes.
respect that. But for me at that time, I if I was okay, which I was at the time,
Yeah.
and she was okay, then I had to like at least try and like, but I knew like obviously if I was starting to develop an infection or whatever, like that would have changed things.
Right.
But at that time I was like, no, I understand the risks, but I want to. I At that time I really didn't know what like trying or saying like what that meant. Like I would do like I would look into it later on and whatnot, and we can get into that. But at the time, I was like, I'm not ready for that. That's
Yes.
not happening. I was like, but I asked about antibiotics. I said, can we get started on antibiotics now? And they said no. And I was like, I was really surprised at that. And I think it's because of it's just not like I don't know whatever like backed up, like, they do evidence based research or,
Right.
whatever. And it's like, I think it's like, it hasn't proven to basically.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if like there's more harm, the harm versus good. So
Yeah.
I was kind of really like like, I felt desperate. I was like, "There what can I do?" I was like, "Antibiotics, like, can I have that?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, "What?" Like, so that
Yeah.
was really hard to hear. But yeah, and then the high risk doctor was gonna be at the hospital the next day. So, like,
Okay.
"Why don't you come back tomorrow and you can talk to the high risk doctor and, like, get more of an idea of, like, where to go from here if you're gonna
Yeah.
stay pregnant."
Yeah.
So I went
Uh,
home from work. Obviously, I went home from
obviously.
work and I did not go back, like, I was
Yes.
off of work. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you got off work and then you came so you did come back in then the next day to talk to the
I did. I
okay.
did.
And what did they say? And how are you feeling? Like, was it still like because I've had my water break once before and it just kept coming. I swear. It was like, were you leaking the entire time?
Yeah, like, it was, like, spotty, like, a little pink tinge spot, like,
Mhm.
it wasn't, like, huge gushes, but yeah, I had to wear pads. It would
Yeah.
continue the whole until she was born.
Okay.
Because she would still make amniotic fluid,
Right.
um, but
Right.
it would just come out until the day where it's
Yes.
supposed to. Yeah.
Okay. So you came in the next day.
I talked to one of the with MFMs, maternal fetal medicine doctors, which is the
Mhm.
high risk doctors, and it wasn't good. It wasn't like I was hoping for, like, I don't know, like, some sort of, like, hope or, like, plan, like, and it just wasn't good news. It was, like, recommendation again about, like, ending the pregnancy, and then she had to go over she's like, "I know you probably know, but I still have to say, like, all the risks that are associated with staying pregnant at,
Yeah.
this early." Anyway, so she went over that, and it was just like, oh, like, there is nothing really they could do for me,
Mhm.
and that was really hard because I was hoping to go in and, like, hear something, like, and the only thing she said, "Well, if you're still pregnant, I think at 23 weeks, you could get admitted and we'd start antibiotics and, like, you'll be admitted until you deliver at that point." So you'd have to make it, like, what, I was 17 weeks at that point, so it would be, like, 6 more weeks, like,
Yeah. That's a long time to stay pregnant and not get an infection. On I
yeah,
like from what I've talked to people about.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
is yeah. Okay, so what so you went home and did you just hang out and
yeah.
not do anything?
So, yeah, I basically put myself on bed rest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I got up to go to the bathroom and to, like, get food, and that was pretty much it. I did keep my appointment with so I had that OB appointment. I don't know if you
Yes.
remember, like, I
Yes.
had scheduled after, and so it was, like, that week, and so I did go, and he actually, I asked for antibiotics. He was like, "Well, like, do you understand the risk?" Like, he didn't, like, prescribe antibiotics, so, like, I felt like I was doing something, like, even if they didn't help, like, it was helpful to me that he basically heard that, like, that's what I wanted, and yeah, so I started antibiotics. I, found this, it's called PPROM. It's like an organization, and there's, like, this whole community online about this happens a lot, and I had no idea, but
Mhm.
there's a whole community that this happens, and, like, women have come together to, like, share tips and, like, whether or not it's, I mean, I don't know how, like, research backed it is, but, like, somewhat, like, high doses of vitamin C and lots of water and, like, all these other supplements and, like, trying to, like, 'cause sometimes depending on how the bag breaks, it's possible that it could reseal if it's not, like, a grossly, like, rupturing, if it's, like, a small, like,
Yeah.
leak or
Right.
and, like, you hear all these, like, miracle stories of, like, you
Yeah.
know so I really clung to that, and I was like, or just like preventing infections, so, like, being on probiotics, and, just trying, like, to prevent
Anything that
infection. Yeah,
mhm.
anything, right? Stay hydrated, and I did that for, I was 17 weeks when it officially got diagnosed until, about 3 weeks and 2 days. So I was, 20 weeks and 2 days when, I started going into labor, basically. So,
Oh. So you just
yeah,
you started feeling cramping and contractions then.
yeah, 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 and it was weird because it was 3 weeks. It's like you have, like, especially knowing what I know, and it's like you have, like, this, you're holding hope, like, you have so much hope that your baby is gonna be that miracle baby that's gonna survive and then have, like, the lungs are gonna be, like, they're gonna, all the different levels of like, like, the next thing
Yes.
and the next thing, and, like, and
Mhm.
it's like you read those, like, stories, you're like, "Maybe it'll be my baby." Then I also, like, there's the other half of me that's a realist. I'm like, "This baby's not gonna make it." So it was like really weird to like be in that like basically waiting period.
Yeah. So you started feeling contractions, and you had thus far you had avoided any sort of
Mhm.
infection that you were aware of,
Mhm.
and so but you ended up going to the hospital because of the contractions. Or wait, did you not go into the hospital when you got contractions?
I did. So that morning I had had like eggs and like garlic, a lot of garlic fruit. And I know like sometimes it upsets my stomach. So at first it felt like, well,
Mm.
maybe I just had like ate too much garlic. And then it felt like contractions. Like I've never felt contractions, but I obviously work and I describe them all the time to patients. So like
Yeah.
I was like, shoot, like it felt like a wave. Like it felt like it started slow and then it grew and then it went away. And at this point it wasn't painful, but I was like, this is a contraction. This isn't like I know what this is.
Yeah.
And so I went in because they weren't, like I said, they weren't painful yet, but I was like, this is how it starts. And I knew
Yeah.
that. So I had text I don't really have family in the area. So I knew my support people who I wanted to be at the birth. So I had text them kind of like as I was going in, I think to give them a heads up, like, hey, like, because they had been kind of on standby, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
they knew it could happen at any time.
Right.
Um, and so I was like, I'm hoping it's not what this is, but I am going to the hospital to get checked out. So just
Okay.
like, because they're like 3-ish hours away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so a little bit of a drive, so that's good to just kind of, yeah, give them a heads up.
Yeah. Um, so when I got there to the hospital, my heart rate was like in the 140s, which is high.
Hi. Yes.
Um, yeah, I surprised that I didn't have a temperature, but the baby's heart rate was also high, which is
Oh.
also a sign of like infection. And at the time, I'm trying to think, I was still hoping that this wasn't happening. So like they wanted to like check my cervix with their hand
Mhm.
to see if I was dilating. I asked them not to because that's like it could increase infection risk.
If yes.
I was still kind of like I guess in denial. But anyway, so they did a speculum, which is like more of a sterile exam to
Mhm.
see if they could see anything. And the cervix they said looked about the same, like 1 to 1.5 centimeters. Like visually, it's not the most accurate, but it wasn't like super open.
Yes, okay.
I was like, okay, like, well, it's not causing my cervix to open. So maybe like I was still kind of like, maybe we can like get this, like, get some fluids. I know, like make the contractions go away. But
Yeah.
then it just got worse. It's just in the span of an hour, it went from like 0 to 60 where they became so painful and I was in so much pain.
Oh.
And I was starting to throw up and I was like, I couldn't stay in bed. And it was like, happened so fast. And they had drawn some blood to
Uh-huh.
check for infection, and that had
Yeah.
come back, and like one of the tests is like a lactic acid, and that was elevated. So I was like,
Oh.
yep, it's yeah. So um, luckily, like I forget, I think it's this afternoon. It's the afternoon by this point, and they're like, well, you're gonna get admitted, and this is happening. And while I was having all that pain, I was like, okay, I think you need to check my cervix now because now it's like painful. And so when
Yeah.
they did check, it was 3 centimeters.
Oh,
So it was happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, baby's heart rate, how was it at that time? Was it still kind of a little elevated?
So because I was only 20 weeks, they're not continuously monitoring it. They just do a spot check in the beginning to see if baby's still alive,
Doing
basically, and to
okay.
get like a number, and then it's not being monitored.
Okay. Okay.
So it was just that one time. It was like 170s, and normal is like below 160.
Yeah. So they get you checked in and, going through this, you are in a lot of pain. And
Yeah.
did you I guess in the time that you were I know that you're holding out hope, right? Like, but like there was probably a realist part of you that was had some thoughts of like, okay, if I need to give birth, then
Mhm.
what was that going to look like? Did you think about that or what you wanted during the birth if it
Mm,
were to come sooner than later?
yeah. So I think as soon as like those contractions picked up and became painful, then I knew like this was happening today.
Yeah.
It I just like so there was no hope after that, and at that point, the pain was so intense that I just honestly wasn't even thinking about like the birth. I was like, I want an epidural, like
Okay.
like that was my focus at that
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
It was unlike anything I've ever felt, and it happened so quickly, and I was just like I felt so out of control, like,
Mm.
uh, and that was really hard. Like I was just this pain was yeah. So I was like, I need the epidural.
Okay.
Um, and so I got into a room and got an epidural pretty quickly, and it was the most amazing thing. Like, it just I feel like it gave me back my sanity. Like, I could, like, breathe, and then I could, like, think about, like, the next
Yeah.
step, you know? Like, I
Yeah.
became, like, a normal person again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because that pain can really, like, oh, it's so distracting, right? Like, it did. Okay, so you got the epidural on. Contractions are happening regularly enough, or are they still kind of sporadic but just quite painful? I mean,
after the
before.
epidural, I don't know. Like, they
Yeah.
went away with that, with epidural. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
um, I think they was probably still happening, but, like, I don't know because I got the epidural and I didn't feel anything.
Great.
Um,
Yeah, which is
yeah.
nice.
And the doctors, they wanted to start giving medicine to, like, speed things up, originally, because of the infection, and I asked them not to because I wanted my family there, and they're on their way.
Okay.
And so I know from experience that the medication can make things happen very quickly, especially if you're
Very.
already kind of in labor and
Yeah.
it's premature, so all that stuff. So, and I think at that point, by the time I got settled in the room, they redid the blood test, and, with the boluses and the antibiotics, like, things were already getting better, and so I wasn't things weren't critical, so they said, "Yes, we can wait until your family gets there,"
Okay.
and so
Okay.
that felt good to me.
And
Yeah.
then and they were able to come in because once again, you just don't know quite know what the especially during COVID, so there was a lot of restrictions. So your
Yeah.
family was able to come in and be with you. Is that right?
Yeah, so I had only asked 2 people because those were the 2 people I wanted at birth of her. At the time, you could have 2 people, that was
Yeah.
the number,
Okay.
and so I didn't even think, and we do at my hospital, like, we would make exceptions for lost families,
Yeah.
but I didn't even think about, 1, asking the hospital again for that exception or even asking other people, like, I was like, "Are these are my 2 people, they're coming." Like, that was fine, that felt good to me, but, like, I'm like, oh, looking back, I'm like, I probably could have had more people if I wanted, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Did they get there in a timely fashion? Were they able to get there in
Yeah,
the in time
yeah.
essentially?
Yeah, luckily they did. It was like maybe 5 PM, 6 PM at this point, and they both got there at the same time. They're coming from different cities, so it was kind of funny. They walked in together. It was my sister and my, stepmother.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and at this point, like, emotionally, I wasn't, like, crying at this. I think I just kind of accepted, like, this was happening, and then my sister's really great at distracting, and that's exactly what I needed. So
Yeah.
she was, like, kind of, like, just talking about other, like, story, like, for kid like, something, and I appreciated that because I needed to be distracted at that point. I know that's
Mhm.
not the case for everyone, but, like, it was helpful to me. Um,
Yes. Yeah. Your brain can only take so much like yeah, that anticipation and the grief and all of that. And so that
yeah.
yes. Yeah, I found myself we found ourselves laughing at the hospital after our son was born even though we were like this is we shouldn't be laughing, but you your body does need a break sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so they got there.
Mhm.
You're still probably contracting just because, you're
Yeah.
going did they end up starting you on something to start speeding up the process or no? Or were you, like, laboring pretty regularly now, contracting pretty regularly?
Right. Honestly, I still wasn't feeling anything. I had a great epidural,
Yeah.
and it was
Mhm.
change of shift at this point.
Mhm.
And so they were waiting for the next doctor or the next, like, basically a
Ri
change of the doctors and nurses,
yes.
to, like, basically check do a cervical check and then see if I needed the medicine at that point.
Yeah.
And so, it was going to night shift, and I worked at the time, I was working night shift, so it was, like, all my people,
Okay.
coming on, and, and the doctor actually from day shift stayed. She wanted to stay for the delivery, so that I thought
Oh,
that was really,
yeah.
I don't know, like, meaningful, like, they work crazy hours, and so the fact that she was wanted to stay anyway, but yeah. So,
That's very kind.
change of shift, I got my nurse who was phenomenal, and that must be hard because she knew me as a friend as well as,
Yeah.
like, so I know it's not an easy assignment to take, so I'm really grateful that she chose to
Yeah.
take me, and yeah, so they check, and Um, basically, I don't need the medicine. It's like they could feel like she was there basically, and so it was basically time to push. Um, So, and they had asked me with a plan, like, if she, what do you want to do after she's born? Like, do you
Yeah.
want her skin to skin? Do you want us to like kind of clean her up and then give her to you? And I had like kind of, I knew how things went. So this is like, I know it sounds weird to say, but like, it's kind of comforting knowing what to expect because
Yes.
I'm prepared. And it
Yes.
gave me so much more empathy for our patients who don't know what's going on. Like,
Right.
to just like to have the situation that we have and then also like all these like unknowns and like what's going to happen, like I had some background, I knew kind of what to expect to happen, and for me that was like so comforting because I could like anticipate and expect. So anyway, that was a side note, but
No,
yeah.
I think it's a great side note because, yeah, there was definitely when you kind of know, like, how your baby's gonna look, or
Mhm.
you can ask for certain things like skin to skin, and, I think that really does help considerably with the experience, right? Like, it's gonna have a likely a bad end, but to have some things that you can kinda hold on to or just focus on that, I don't know, that would've helped me when I went through that, so,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. It makes me, I feel like a different nurse now
yeah,
going through it, obviously, but
yeah.
yeah, I have so much empathy for yeah. Anyway, so continuing on, yeah, so I decided that if she was born alive, because I didn't at this point we didn't know, and if she was born alive, I wanted her skin to skin right away. But if she wasn't, I had told them like, can you like just wrap her up or and then bring her to me, and that was like earlier on in the day, and then at this point when I kind of like the way like she was like I don't, not to get into too many details, but in my head like I was like, there's no way that she will be born alive, so. When it was time to push, I was like, "Can you just take her and clean her up and then bring her to me?" I don't want her skin to skin right away,
Okay, okay.
because she's gonna be in my mind like not alive.
Yeah.
And so I didn't push. I mean, she was so little; she was only 20 weeks, a couple days, and so I only pushed not very much, couple times maybe, and she was born. And that silence that everyone talks about, I've heard 100 babies cry, and just to have that silence was really hard. And so they took her to the warmer, and I don't think I was even crying at this point. I was just like it happened. It's like I was almost in shock.
Yeah.
And then the nurse came over and she was like, there, she's alive. Sorry. She was like throwing her arm up. Like she was like, she's alive and sorry. Like I was like, and that's when I broke down. Like I just lost it because I wasn't expecting that. And
Yeah.
like, yes, they brought her over to me and like she was so tiny, but she was so perfect. Like I was just like amazed by how perfectly perfectly formed everything was on her, and like she was beautiful. Like she was just like the most gorgeous thing I've ever saw. Like I couldn't stop looking at her, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like you're you're perfect. And I just like I told her how much I loved her, and I told her how sorry I was, and I just apologized to her. I felt like over and over because like in my mind she was just this perfect baby, and she was just born too early. So yeah, so I feel sorry. I feel grateful that I got that time with her, and she was on my chest and she lived for about her heartbeat for about an hour. So I got about an hour with her.
Oh, that is amazing. That's amazing. So you got to hold her and, you talked to her, it sounded like. Um,
Yeah,
what other things were you able to do while she was with you?
it's like kind of weird because I had all this time to prepare and I didn't prepare like for what to do after. Like I didn't like I've heard,
Oh,
on your podcast people who read books to their babies or like brought special things to wear. And I didn't
mhm.
do any of that because I don't know if I just was in denial, but like I feel like I had all the time to do that and I didn't. So I just talked to her and like I remember like I think I told you about her nose was just so
Mhm.
perfect. And so I just remember like rubbing, like, her nose, like, her forehead to her nose,
Oh.
like, it was just, like, this perfect, like, her face was just so perfect and round, and I just was, like, just just touching her, and talking to her, and yeah, I mean, it was just spending time like, that's all, like, I didn't do anything, but one thing I wish I had done,
Mhm.
'cause my family, like, they asked if I wanted, like, a video, or the nurse asked if I wanted a video, and I said, "No." Like, pictures, like, we took some pictures, but at the time I was like, "Wait, like, no." And I really wish I had a video of her while she was living, but yeah, so we just spent time with her, and I remember I was feeling her umbilical cord to see if her heart was still beating. I don't know why, but, like, I really needed to know, when she passed. Like, I wanted to know, like, not the exact time, but I just, like, was she still
Yeah.
alive? Yeah, because when they're that little, it's not like her eyes are not open, like,
Right.
um, and so it was kind of really hard to tell whether she was alive still, but about an hour is when I didn't feel any more, of the heartbeat, and I kind of towards the end, like, I wanted her to go because in my mind, I didn't want her to suffer, like, I was like, I didn't want her to feel any pain, so I was like, I think I told her, I was like, "You can go." Yeah, and then, they wrapped her up and my family got to hold her, and that was really special, and, I was worried. I was worried that what they would think of her because she was so little, and, I'm used to seeing little babies, but they don't look like full-term babies, and,
Yeah.
um, but they just loved on her, and I felt very grateful they got to meet her, and, later on, like, coworkers who, they asked if they could come in, but they came
Yeah.
in and they got to meet her, and it's so wild thinking about it, like, more of my coworkers, like, my work family met my baby than my own family, like, and that's just, like, it blows my mind sometimes, like,
Yeah. Just the nature of your
yeah,
situation and
yeah,
but also, there's something kinda cool about that too because you spend so much time with your coworkers and you are in it with them a lot of times, especially in L&T, so it's kind of cool too that they were able to meet her.
yeah,
Did you announce you had already told it you were already had told people what her name was, right?
yeah,
Did
yeah,
you officially say, "It is for sure this now"?
yeah, 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 it was Samira, she was just it was, like, perfect for her too, like, you just like, "Yes, your name is Samira, and that's who you are," she said she was just so beautiful, and yeah, my nurse, like, I remember the words she said to me, it was like, because like, when she was born, like, she, like, was, like, throwing her arms up, and she was like, "She's so strong," and, like, those words, like, stay with me, like, "She's perfect, and she's strong, and she's beautiful," and it's like, oh, like,
Yeah,
like, you hear those, like, it's exactly what I needed to hear about her,
yeah. Oh, you nurses are amazing. I just think back on the nurses that we had, and I just am so, so grateful for
Yeah, it always
this.
warms my heart when I hear people have great nurses, and then I get really, really sad for people when they don't have,
Yeah,
good experiences, so.
yeah.
One thing that happened with the early having an early baby too is that the placenta was having a hard time coming
Yes.
out,
Yes.
and I in my head, I don't wanna go to the OR, I wanna spend as much time with my baby as possible, and luckily, like, I wasn't bleeding,
Mhm.
and so they gave me time, and it was, like, 4 hours later. Like, it was a long time before it came
Oh,
out, but I just remember, like, I realized, like, and everyone, no one wants to go to the OR, um, even the doctors and nurses, like, we don't want patients to go to the OR, but it's like sometimes you have to. But
yes.
I was just so grateful that it came out on its own. They gave me time. I was stable enough. But like thinking about the whole delivery, like I always say, like I hate that it happened, and obviously I wish Samira was here, but like everything happened as good as it could have happened. If that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah, for the situation.
Yeah.
That is a blessing for them to, like, give you the time to be with her and then not because it really like, when they're delivering the placenta, it really so much to do. Like, it feels like there's kind of a lot involved, and so that's really cool.
Yeah.
What is your hospital's policy for how long you can keep your baby with you. I just
Yeah.
some hospitals are very strict about it, and others are just like, yeah, keep them as long as you want, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so I'm lucky that our hospital obviously has, like, a cuddle cot, and,
Oh, great.
yeah, as long as you want, as long as you're there, you can have the baby there.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, so she was there. I only stayed she delivered that evening, Saturday night, and then I really wanted to get home as soon as possible. I mean, I wanted to spend time with her, but, like, I also wanted to get home. I didn't wanna spend another night there.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was, like, about 20 a little less than 24 hours after she was born, I was discharged, but and I kept her up until, like, 10 minutes before I left
Okay.
the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask. Did they end up? How big was she? How much did she weigh, and how
Mm,
long was she?
mm.
Were they did
Yeah,
they
she
do that? I'm not sure if that. I mean, if they were able to do that quickly and everything.
they did, yeah, they do because they take her to do, like, do the little pictures and, um, measurements and what and footprints and all that, and she was only 11 ounces. She was really
Oh,
tiny,
so
which is
tiny.
about I think I was looking, it's, like, about the size, like, of a soda can,
Yeah.
and I wanna say she was, like, 9.5 inches long.
Oh, yeah. So little.
Yeah, little, yeah, so little. Like I said, she had this, like, round head that was, like, this, like, perfectly, like, round head, and, yeah, so she looked perfect.
Oh, so you kept her right up until you discharged, and
So my family went home, like, after she was born, they
okay.
stayed a couple hours and not home, sorry, they got hotels, so they,
Right.
um, stayed, close by, and then they came back in the morning to, like, visit, and then they left, and which was good because I'm, like I feel very, responsible for people, so, like,
Mm.
I wanted to be by myself because if they were there, I'd be worried about them, if that makes sense,
Yes.
like, "Oh, are they comfortable? Have they eaten? Have they,
Yes.
like, what?"
Yeah, you put on hostess mode, right? And you're
Yeah,
just trying to while you definitely need your time to yourself and time to cry and all that. Okay.
right.
So they
So
ended
when
up
I left,
leaving.
I left the hospital, like, alone well, first, like, so they were like I knew I wanted to leave before change of shift, so they're like, when will they take when do you want us to take her?" And I was like, "Never." But, yeah, I was like, I guess right before I leave, and so that was so hard, and I know everyone says that. It's, like, so hard to see them take your baby, like, knowing that you're like, I wasn't gonna see her again because I didn't wanna see her at the funeral home, and so it was, like, the most final goodbye, like, and I was, like while I was on bed rest, I had made a playlist for Samira of all these songs, like, and so, like, when she was leaving, I was, like, playing it, and it was, like, the one song, it's, by, I think Christina Perri, it's, like I don't even know the name of it, it's, like, the song where it's, like, "I have loved you for 1,000 years."
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
so that was
I think it's
playing when
called
she
A
left.
Thousand Years.
What?
I think it's called A Thousand Years.
Okay. Oh, well, that makes sense, but, like, that was, like, just how I felt, like, I've loved you before you were born, and I'm gonna love you forever, and when she left, that was just it was just devastating,
Yeah. Yes.
um, and then I was like, "I need to leave," so I left, shortly after, and I think being alone, I was alone, and that didn't bother me so much as, like, in my body, I felt alone, if that makes sense. Like, I'm a bigger person, and so at 20 weeks, I didn't really feel pregnant still, like, and because I lost my fluid, I didn't really feel her moving too much,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I didn't really feel pregnant until she wasn't there anymore, and so when I left, I just remember feeling like, "Oh my gosh," like,
Oh,
I feel so alone, like, in my body, like, I am alone, and that was, like, a really surprising feeling when I was leaving.
that's a hard feeling to be with a lot of times for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
So that evening, right? Because what time did you just discharge? Would you say
Probably like 6 p.m., I
6
wanna
p.m.?
say.
Okay.
I needed to get, like they wanted me to get my last dose of antibiotics or whatever before I left.
Right. Well, and I was gonna
Yeah.
say, were you still? I know that your heart rate was elevated, but you hadn't fevered
Mm-mm,
yet at all.
which is
Okay. Okay. That's a blessing right there.
mhm,
Also.
mhm.
Okay. So you got your last dose of antibiotics on, and then you headed out.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
at home that evening, how was that evening by yourself? Like you said, you were alone and
yeah.
did you sleep at all? I don't think I would, honestly.
No, I honestly, it's a blur. Like, I don't know, like, if I knew how, like, I was obviously just, like, just sad. And then I think that alone feeling just, like, persisted for a long time. Like, I just felt alone. And uh, I still have those 2 girls living with me, and they didn't I had told them I was in the hospital, but they really didn't know what had happened.
Oh,
Um, yeah, until I came back. And, like, they were, they were working and doing their own thing, so they weren't, like, in the house a lot, but I was just like, "Oh, I have to tell them," I have to tell them. And
yes.
I didn't wanna talk to people too. That's another thing. I had my stepmom, I was like, "Can you just tell people, call them? Like, I cannot talk to people. I don't wanna talk to people. I don't wanna tell them what
Yeah.
happened," you know?
Yep.
So I delegated, and that was, like, really helpful for me.
That's huge. Just having somebody else be your spokesperson when you're like, I don't have the processing power for any of that. So
Yeah.
did your mom tell the girls at the house or did you end up telling them?
I did. I told them, and like, it was kinda weird because, like, they're younger and, like, they were sad for me, but they didn't really understand. I don't think they really understood, like, how devastating this was.
Yeah.
And they were, like, they're sweet and kind, but it's like they weren't they weren't my support people, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I had good support people, just not in person.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that your sister and your stepmom, right, came,
Mhm.
and they came and visited the next morning and then headed out. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I went home, I was, by myself, which is how I really did really want it that way.
Yeah.
And but then, like, once I got home, I was like, "What to do? Like, what do I do now?" And
Yeah.
luckily I got the 6 weeks, off of work
Oh,
for
you did. That's
yeah.
great.
And like I said earlier, everything I think happened the best way because I was past 20 weeks and she was born living. I don't know if I had delivered like a couple days earlier and if she wasn't born living, like I'm not sure I would have gotten that time off. And that's like awful to think about.
That happens to a lot of women, and so, yes, that is, once again, a
And
blessing, like yeah. So you got
um,
so you were able to take maternity leave, essentially.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a blessing.
And I needed that time. Like I could not have
Yes.
gone back to work. So
Yeah,
like,
of course, of course.
uh,
Did you hear
so
back
yeah,
from any of your coworkers? Because you essentially were with them. They were with you.
yeah. Yeah, like, everyone was checking in, they were really, really great in that. I just didn't wanna, like, engage. I know it was probably me, like, I didn't engage too much, like, they would check in and, like, especially the ones that, like, really get it. It was like, I've heard this before, like, "You don't have to respond, just know that I'm thinking about you," like, and those, like, are the best texts because, like, it's lovely to, like, be remembered and, like, to know that they're thinking of me, but, like, I don't wanna talk to you or I don't wanna
Yeah.
have to, like, think of a reply. So just like those texts were really, or like cards and like
Yeah.
things I didn't have to respond to were amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had Samira taken to, a funeral home? What were your plans? Because you said that you did not want to see her after that because maybe what you know working as a L&D nurse and how bodies change and everything. So tell me
Yeah.
about your plan or your thoughts about after she was taken and
Yeah.
after you discharged.
So I knew I wanted her cremated because I wanted her with me always, like wherever I was, like I wanted to like be right. Like, yeah, I wanted her in my house.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that was like a no, like that was a really easy decision for me. And then I also knew that I didn't want to have like a funeral. Um, One, because like a lot of my more extended friends and family, like a lot of them didn't even really know I was pregnant. Like, I never announced on social media. It was just kind of my immediate friends and family, and like some of them heard for the first time I was pregnant when I was like on bed rest. Like I
Yeah.
kind of like sent an email out saying like this is what's happening, and so yeah, I didn't feel like I wanted to have like I didn't have the bandwidth to plan in a funeral, and it just felt not right for me. So, what I wanted to do was like go off and like be by myself. Like I wanted to, and I wanted to get out of my house and out of my town. And so I knew I had this time off. So I was like, that's what I want to, I just need
Oh,
to. leave.
Good. And as what did you end up doing then?
I did. I went up to Southern Oregon. To like there's like just really pretty woods and whatnot. And my sister let me stay at her timeshare. And in my head, I was
I
like,
see.
okay, I'm gonna like go out and do stuff. And like really, I just probably sat there and cried a lot. I mean, I made myself go out, but it was like good just to get out. And then a group of my friends, they were amazing. They were actually I didn't know this at the time, but like when I was telling about when I was on bed rest, I had told them about like the situation and like how if she survived she'd be a NICU baby and, all that. And they had actually already started collecting money for if, for like to give me, I guess, if she was born in the NICU to help support like bills or whatnot.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so, yeah, it was like so unexpected. And then when she obviously, died, they dedicated a tree in the redwood forest, and they sent me this,
Oh,
like, large sum of money that I used to, like, be able to, like, travel a little bit and not worry about money, and so that was, like, so kind and thoughtful,
that
and
is so kind. Yeah.
yeah,
'Cause even that little bit of change of scenery is so helpful. Like,
yeah,
especially when just when your heart is aching, it's just nice to like you said, even though you were crying maybe just in the little timeshare, at least it was a
yeah,
different timeshare.
a different yeah,
Yeah, different
and
area.
I did get out and, like, like, I do feel like I feel her nature, I just feel
Yeah.
close to her and, like and so, yeah, so that was, like that was meaningful to me, and I wrote my journal and was able to, like, write letters to her, and so, like, I did take the time to, like, to do that.
Mm,
Um,
and be with her. Did you end up going to the funeral home and then getting her ashes then, and ho tell me about that
yeah,
process?
that was, like I wasn't, like, on them because I wasn't doing a funeral, so it took a lot longer than I think normally, like, I think it
Mm,
took, like, weeks to get her back, which I don't think is normal. I had to kind of, like, bother like, they were very nice on the phone, but I'm not sure if they were busy or, like, I wasn't a priority because I wasn't having a funeral. I don't know,
oh,
but,
I
like,
see.
it took longer than I expected.
I see, okay.
But then when I finally did get her, it was just also, like, the they gave it to me, like, I had already, bought her, like, a personalized little urn on
Uh-huh,
Instagram or not Instagram, on sorry, on Etsy.
uh-huh.
So it was like I was very it's just beautiful, and I'll send a pic too, but it's, so I had that ready for her, but when they gave her to me, I was kind of shocked at how few ashes there were, like, she's just so little, and then, like
Just hold
yeah, just little, yeah, it's just so little, so she's just, you know, the urn's very tiny, and it's just, like, it's baby size, but it's beautiful, and I have her, like, right, like, in my dining room, like, on a shelf, like, so she's right there. But I remember, like, when I picked her up, and I was on my way home, but I had to stop at Target, and I was like, I can't leave her in the car."
Yeah, you can't leave her in the
Like,
car.
what am I can't leave her in the car, and I was like, "Do
No.
I go home and drop her off?" I was like, "No, I need it, like, I just can't." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, it was, like, it's kinda morbid, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, baby girl, we're going to Target for the first time. Like, you're gonna come to Target with" it was funny and sad at the same time. It was
Yeah,
like 'cause I had all these plans of what I was gonna do with her, and I was like, "Well, I guess we're, like,
going to the
we're still
Target.
gonna" Yeah, yeah, "We're gonna do our Target run." Like, so, yeah, so it was kind of silly, but, yeah, and then, I got her home and put her in her little urn, but, yeah, that's where she is now.
That's wonderful. Farrah, thank you so much for sharing your story of Samira. Is there anything else you would like us to know about her or anything that we missed in our talk?
Yeah, no, I think I've told you this, but, like, I just feel so grateful to share her story because I'm a private person, and I don't feel like I talk about her enough or, like 'cause, like, she was so real to me, and she was my baby, and I loved her, and she was, like, a part of my family, and my heart will always be missing. So, yeah, so just that, like, she's my family, and, like, I think say her name. Like I will always like I'm always thinking about her. So like I don't know. Just she's real. She's my baby and I love her.
That's perfect. Yes, and she is. She always will be. Thank you so much again, Farrah. Thank you, thank you, thank you.